We are going to get into conspiracies on this episode of The Pin and the Shank. That's right. Sometimes when you delve into the world of crime, organized crime, and mysterious disappearances that can be related to crime, conspiracies abound. And often, the deeper and more in depth the layers of the criminal enterprise or the criminal story begins to unfold, the more layers there are, the chances of conspiracy exponentially go up. When you find one person unalived and there are a couple different motives, such as life insurance policies and, a love triangle, there's a possibility for conspiracy because you're not certain what the motive was. And you have multiple possible culprits or suspects that can be connected to the death of one person. But when you got 10 scientists, nuclear physicists, and the brightest minds in the military, all involved in mysteriously disappearing and losing their lives with no cellular devices to back up where they were or how it happened. It's the blueprint for conspiracy. And that's what this story has today. I'm going to read you an article from Newsweek. That's the article, that I read and I decided to go with for this story, but it's titled FBI Investigating Missing and Dead Scientists and What We Know So Far. I came across this article just probably a couple hours ago. And when I saw it, I said, oh yeah, we got to talk about this, because the first thing that popped in my mind was a book that a lot of convicts in prison read. I don't care if it's the feds or state prisons. I was introduced to this book in a Louisiana prison, a southern prison, by a Muslim who was in his 60s, and I was a teenager. And he introduced me to a book called Behold the Pale Horse by Milton William Cooper. So if the Muslims were reading it and the Christians were reading it, there was some kind of connection that they all thought was important to this particular ex-naval intelligence officer or ex-naval officer who was on board many Navy ships to tell his story about UFOs. There we go. Boom. UFOs. So UFOs, if you don't know what they are not from Earth. You see, if you believe what Hollywood tells you, UFOs could be, E.T. It could be the Predator. It could be a xenomorph alien. It's something that's not from Earth. It's from out there in the atmosphere. And so we all have this, creative mindset on what a UFO is and what a UFO isn't. But then there's governmental conspiracies that tie UFOs to something totally different. See, our imagination takes us to E.T. Our imagination takes us to Thanos in the Marvel Universe. But that's just sidetracking stuff that takes us away from the possibility that they're really trying to hide something from us. Area 51. You know what I mean? CERN. If you don't know what CERN is, it's a European organization that studies nuclear radiation and nuclear physics and connects it on how to use it and operate it. So now we have 10 scientists who come up mysteriously dead or missing in the United States of America, on United States soil, in the homeland, gone. And people are starting to take notice of what happened to these scientists. Where are they? And I'm asking you, share in the comment. Did you know that there were 10 mysterious disappearances and deaths of scientists that were really experts in their field, and some of them were connected? What are the connections? You see the movies where they got the blackboard and there's little strings connecting all the crimes. What FBI is sitting back studying this stuff and saying, hey, is there a connection to it? And does the connection go into something deeper because of world domination from other countries? You might not like this, but the fact that countries in the world still want to dominate the world. That still exists. There are still players on the board that want to dominate and take over. And that ain't never going to change till there ain't no more people on Earth. But I'm going to read you this story, man. It's really interesting. And let's get into it. From April 20th, 2026. And like I said, it's coming from Newsweek. We like to give everybody credit. There's a lot of information you can go look online, but I'm going to get right into this article to give you the information that I'm going through right now. I don't have a board in front of me or a teleprompter with all my planned script on this. I'm shooting from the hip. You're getting a real reaction video. I know like people like to watch reaction videos where they got to see a bunch of different images for them to even state, listen, just listen. I'm giving you reaction. I see some of the reaction videos and I'm like, oh yeah, it's got 2 million views. And the reaction video was all the person in the corner just doing this. No, and I'm like, I got 1 million views. They didn't even say nothing. They didn't give no commentary. They didn't share their thoughts. They didn't give no originality to it. Just facial expressions while they watched a video. Just go watch the music video. Ain't no reason. I don't get it. Go beat me up in the comments, whatever. Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI Director Kash Patel has confirmed his agency is investigating a series of scientists reported missing or dead that has attracted widespread attention and online speculation. Officials have not confirmed any links among the recent cases highlighted by online commentary and reports, though the White House indicated last week it would seek updates from relevant agencies after a reporter asked whether any investigation was examining possible connections. Why this all matters. Some lawmakers had previously called for a closer examination of the cases, which range from the disappearance of a retired Air Force general to the killing of a leading astrophysicist. Patel's remarks come after President Donald Trump called the growing list of deaths or disappearances of U.S. experts in advanced space, defense, and nuclear fields in recent years pretty serious stuff. On Thursday, adding that he hoped the series was just coincidental. I want to go back to something. I'm going to go back to what I just read before I read that paragraph. It said some lawmakers had previously called for closer examination of the cases, which ranged from the disappearance of retired Air Force generals to the killing of a leading astrophysicist. Air Force General Milton William Cooper was in the Navy. He worked in conjunction with the Air Force. He was on board naval aircraft carriers in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, and saw. And he's not the only one, because one thing that the Navy and the Air Force will ask its members to do when they witness something that they should not have witnessed or that they want them to keep under wraps, they got to sign something. And if you break that clause, they can break your life. You can go missing like this Air Force general and this astrophysicist. Man, this stuff is real, y'all. I've always been, since I was a young teenage boy, I didn't understand anything. Of course, I still don't understand about anything about astrophysicists or, nuclear physicists, physicists, scientists. The stuff that these people do is, I'm a layperson. But I've always been a person who asks questions, even as a young man. And when I see this stuff and 10 people come up missing, it can't be just coincidental. You can't tell me the possibilities of what could and can't be behind the motivation for all these people who have extreme knowledge and very detailed fields to come up missing with no trace. Of course, we got to talk about this, man. That's why it's starting to garner attention. And so the article continues on, and they're trying to get me to buy this stuff, y'all, but I'm reading this article as we go. So what to know? And these missing and killed scientists and former professional members of the Department of Energy vary in wide range. And we're working most importantly with our state and local partners who have the jurisdiction on each of these cases. Whether they be a homicide or a missing persons case, they have the evidence. What we're going to do is collectively pull it all into one place, Patel told Fox News. We started this process last week, and then we're going to look for connections on whether there are connections to classified access to classified information and or foreign actors. And then we will produce that information to the White House and the world because it's of such great public importance. I agree with the statement, but the chances that we get the full truth, they're going to disclose to us the full and unedited truth, that's just not likely. It's never likely. And before you start crying that your party is the great party, the great political party of doing right and self-justice and disclosing truth, don't be so stupid. Since the world has started recording UFOs and the possibility of UFO sightings and UFO aircraft and Hangar 18, both parties have been in power and both parties have kept this stuff under wraps. So there's a bigger conspiracy going on here. And that's why some people talk about a new world order, because if you talk about a new world order, the conspiracy gets even bigger because it involves most likely a lot of the players in all the major power positions across the world on all platforms of the world, meaning government, military, educational, scientific. Man, y'all, you don't want to lose your life getting fixated on the stuff. Milton William Cooper lost his life. Supposedly, you ever notice something when people are silenced, who know too much and want to start revealing too much and exposing too much, somehow or another it always goes to tax evasion. And that's why they would go and investigate and then they lose their life. Right. Listen, I ask questions, but there ain't nothing I can do about it. I'm just some dude who done prison time in Louisiana, and I think a little bit differently. And I ask questions, like I said, because that's just the way my mind works. That's the way the gears start spinning in my head. And so when I see 10 missing scientists, I start thinking the same thing, man. What's really going on? You know, how are they connected? And what are they connected to? Is it possible that Russia, China, you know, Pakistan, India, who knows? You know, one of these world powers who have a lot of vetted interest in nuclear weapons and nuclear capabilities and nuclear capacities. There's only a handful of countries in the world, and I noticed something ahead. I don't have no list. I just, from my own self-interest and stuff that I'm interested in, I know there's only a handful of countries in the entire world that have nuclear weapons. Let's be real about it. And I might be missing this, so share in the comments if I'm right or wrong, because I'm going off the top of my head. Russia, China, America, France, England, Pakistan, India, and North Korea. That's the only ones I can think of. Who am I missing? I might not be missing anybody. So that's less than 10 countries in the world that have a nuclear arsenal. And probably Russia and America would have the most nuclear weapons, and probably coming after that would probably be China, because of the great arms race that Russia and America had in the 1960s, 1970s, when they were designing out. Think about that show Fallout, that TV show that's based on a video game. That's based on the arms race of the Soviet Union and America. And don't think the rest of the world wasn't included in that, because the Soviet Union and America were just the ones who had enough money to spend on the nuclear arms race. I remember I read Colin Powell's book when I was in prison, and Colin Powell was a general for the United States Army. And in his autobiography, he mentions when he was meeting with the Russian general who was, I forgot his name, Khrushchev or something like that. And they were in Texas, I think it was. And when they were in Texas, they were sharing, you know, they were trying to be open with each other about the weapons that each other had, so they can come to some kind of peace agreement about nuclear war and not to use nuclear weapons on one another. Let's make it a peace agreement. Let's agree that we don't want to do this. And so part of doing that was showing each other some of each other's card hand, right? And so General Powell told the general from Russia, he said, look, you want to come check out some of our weapons, you know, talking about the nuclear science. And the general said, I'm not interested in that. We have that times 100. Doesn't interest me. He said, I'm more interested in seeing how you run your educational system and your healthcare system. Now, was it devious reasons why he wanted to see the healthcare system, the educational system, and probably our judicial system? Probably not, because if you're planning and plotting to destroy an empire, you're looking at all possible means to destroy that empire, meaning from within. You ain't got to go far, man. Start reading Marco Polo's journeys. Start studying Genghis Khan. Read Sun Tzu's The Art of War. People think I'm crazy when I say some of the stuff that I say, but an eternal attack is one of the best attacks ever, because you don't have to send your soldiers on the line to die. You can send informants in who will get you the information you need, and then you can destroying your enemy from within. Boom. So how do we know? I'm saying all that to say this. How do we know that rogue nations or non-rogue nations who we have some kind of agreement with? I mean, listen, we can't ignore the elephant in the room. If you want to come to America to cause harm, you can do it. You can get here. We don't have a good checks and balances when it comes to what's going on and who's coming in and out of our country gathering intel. We just don't. We'd be, I don't care who you stand for politically, we'd be stupid to think that. But so there's stuff going on, man. I'm going to finish this article. The FBI is one of 4 agencies being pressed for details by the House Oversight Committee. Who has received oversight letters? House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer told Fox News that notices had been sent to the FBI, NASA, the Department of Energy, and the Defense Department. The heads of these departments are Patel, Jared Isaacman, Chris Wright, and Pete Hegseth, respectively. We want to know everything that they know about what happened with these scientists because those 4 agencies were predominantly the agencies that those 11 individuals were affiliated with, Comer said. And then it shows a picture of the Air Force general and one of the scientists. And then it goes on to say, obituaries and memorial posts are offering rare, concrete details about the missing and deceased scientists. As public attention on the case has intensified, some experts and people close to those who have died or gone missing have pushed back against conspiracy claims. Below is a list of workers with ties to advanced research whose disappearance or deaths have been attracted by public interest. And it goes on to list the people, and I'm going to talk about some of the people. Amy Eskridge, scientist reportedly researching anti-gravity technology. She died in May of 2022. Anti-gravity technology. That sounds extraterrestrial in nature because we know that we know the law of physics applies. I know that much true. I know, look, pencil, what stands up must go down. Here it is. What goes up must come down. So we know if they starting to fool with and get into physics to where they're breaking the laws of physics, it has to be from a technology that we ourselves don't have on Earth. So for me, and I'm going to get into some deeper stuff here, y'all, that means that aliens have a technology that we ourselves do not have. Obviously, they're more advanced because if they can travel with a spacecraft engineered to travel in space, whether it's light years or it's just in regular time, we still can't. We don't even know if we really went to the moon. They have a lot of people, no shortage of people, including reputable people who question if we actually landed on the moon. Remember, I told you the USSR and America were fighting in an arms race. We were also in a science race to see who can get to the moon the quickest. So we don't know how can we aim? If that was in the 1970s, we should be leaps and bounds on the moon by now. What has held us back? What? Maybe the aliens, huh? Maybe the extraterrestrials told us we can't go there. And what if the extraterrestrials have a knowledge that we ourselves can't even comprehend? Or what if they're making deals behind the scenes with whoever is or isn't inside of the White House? Man, this stuff is wild. I know. And you got to look back all the way to the beginning of time to see that there's a possibility of a life form that's more advanced than we are when it comes to what it knows and what it doesn't know, the knowledge base. We think we're so smart. I talk to people all the time about this. I'm like, man, we have information that we gather from other people who came before us. And we take this information and we apply it to what we are studying today. And if we are lucky, we live 100 years. Very few people live. You can live to make it to 100 years. A few people live to make it over 100 years, but it's rare. If you make it to 80, you had a long life. You spend the first part of those years as an infant, then an elderly, most other instances where you're not even doing nothing. You have a small amount of time to obtain information, and we act like we're all so smart. If you stack our 60 to 80 years against the possibility of a supernatural being that has been in existence for thousands of years, the fact that they can obtain and become or are more smarter than we ever can imagine would be foolish. 80 years. In biblical times, they lived to 1,000 years. You see how much information you gathered in 60 years? Imagine the amount of information that they gathered in 1,000 years. That's what I'm saying, man. You can get much more information, man. This stuff is crazy, man. We're going down a conspiracy rabbit hole here talking about aliens, on a crime and prison channel, the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime prison channel experience on YouTube. Michael Davis Hicks, research scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, worked on the DART project, the Deep Space One mission. He died July of 2023. Frank Mawald, principal researcher at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, died July 2024. Anthony Chavez, former employee at Los Alamos National Laboratory. He's been missing since May 2025. Missing. Where's he at? Who got him? Monica Reza, director of materials processing at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. A lot of jet propulsion stuff here. Missing since June 2025. Melissa Sias, I hope I'm saying her name right, administrative worker at Los Alamos National Laboratory, missing since June of 2025. Stephen Garcia, government contractor at a New Mexico facility for the Kansas City National Security Campus, missing since August 2025. A lot of missing. A lot of people working on some NASA projects in some places, Los Alamos, New Mexico, etc. Nuno L'Oreal, director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center. She died December of 2025. Chris Grillmeier, Caltech astrophysicist who worked on NASA's NEOWISE and NEO-Surveyor missions. He died in February 2026. William Neal McCaslin, retired U.S. Air Force Major General, missing since February 27, 2026. And Jason Thomas, pharmaceutical researcher, found deceased in March of 2026. That's a lot of really smart people who are missing or who are dead without any real explanation. These people were relatively young, in their 50s and 60s, and they're missing and or dead. Can't be found. Something is going on, or something ain't going on, or it's just one big coincidence. Isn't it something how every time something is conspiratorial, it's just a coincidence? And sometimes I'm not going to sit here and pretend like everything in life is a conspiracy, because I don't believe that. I think we can go, if we're smart, we look at it as a possibility of a conspiracy until we can rule out conspiracy. And that's up to your individual conscience, because we can't know everything. You don't know everything. And I'll give you a good example. It's the Epstein list. People are fixated on Epstein list. I was more interested in hearing about the true Epstein list 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I ain't interested now. I know 5 or 6 years have passed since I was most interested in seeing those lists. I don't know what they're going to give me now. They can give me any documentation. How do I know it's the original documentation? And what has been, X'd out and hidden and redacted? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I can and can't trust. So I have to use my own discernment, and I have to gather my own information. But I don't need no list to tell me that there's a conspiracy going on with the elites of the world when it comes to messing with little kids. I don't need no list to tell me that. I know that. I've been knowing that for the last 25 years of my life. I didn't need the news channels to tell me to get worked up about it. Nobody tells me when and when not to get worked up. I base those decisions on my own. And I try to stay calm, but it don't always work. This is a really interesting story, y'all. I want you to share in the comments what you think is going on. Why are these scientists missing? Why all these people came up missing? What do you think about extraterrestrial life, UFOs? Do you think that it's possible that it's not really UFOs, that it's demons or angels? The advanced technology that Earth has seen and intergalactic time travel and space travel could be connected not just to life forms out in space, but we're talking about life forms that exist in another dimensional plane than we ourselves exist. We're talking about life forms that have access to God and a heavenly host, and their knowledge base and information far exceeds ours. It would make a lot of sense to me personally on why they can do things like travel up and down and in and out of realms. Why do you think the term Jacob's ladder comes from? Jacob's ladder was a ladder where angels travel in and out of heaven. And supposedly there are different portals on earth where not just angels, but demons can travel in and out of. And it's not just Christians who believe this. Other religions, Muslims have some form of fashion of beliefs in this. Even, you know what I mean? Witches, demonic witches, people who practice witchcraft for the sake of doing evil. They believe in these portals and these supernatural beings. I'm just saying, man, we don't know what kind of technology is out there, and we don't know what our government's hiding. And we don't know what the other governments of the world are hiding behind their borders that we can't get to because they're so top secret and closed. You can't even try bringing a box of Bibles into China and see what happens to you. You won't think it's so funny then. There's some real stuff. You know, we got it good here. You know, we got it so good that when 10 of the world's greatest minds come up missing, we got it so good because we got our McDonald's and we got our Netflix that, you know, we got our food vouchers. You know, I went to Walmart yesterday, man. They had baskets full. I said, oh, some people must have got paid. I ain't never been in Walmart in the last, 20 years of my life where I filled up a basket. Since I've been out of prison, me and my wife, we had a couple times where we might have had early on when food wasn't so expensive and we might have had 40 or 50 items in the basket. I ain't never had 200 items in a Walmart basket. I don't know what that feels like. We go get 15, 20 items and we feel like we're doing good after we spent our $80 for 10 or 15 items. This is some crazy stuff. So we got it so well and so good that you don't have time. Look, here goes your new music video. Here goes the greatest new song. It's the top so-and-so song. Or just be worried about this and worried about that instead of stuff you should be worried about. And before you worry about conspiracy theories, worry about your own life. Cover your own life. That's what I do. My life comes first before conspiracy theories. I got to have my stuff in order. I got to hurt back, so I'm trying to deal with that. And you got to make sure you got your affairs in order. Make sure you paying your taxes and you law-abiding citizen. Don't give the government a reason for you to come up missing. I'm just a dude who's talked. They can, I don't have no big platform. They're not worried about me. Now, who knows? I can get a big platform, some years from now, and maybe they'll be concerned. They're just not worried about me right now. You never know when they're going to be worried about you. You go take a walk and you come up missing. I don't know. Something to think about. Welcome to the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube, where we go on tangents about missing scientists, UFOs, angels, and demons, and how all that connects to crime itself and prison. They got aliens still in prison. You think them aliens ain't locked up? I just did a video about the only 3 people who went in range 13 inside the Supermax prison, Supermax Florence, ADX. So we have a ADX, a specially designed prison for humans, and only 3 people have ever been in it. 3. I did a video. I'll connect the video at the end of this video. It'll be typed at the very end of this video, and I'll put it in the comments. Only 3 people been in ADX range 13. It's a super secretive place where only 3 humans have ever spent the night in. You don't think that they have aliens or Nephilim that they got housed in some top secret place? I don't think that our government and our militaries of the world, not just U.S. military, but Chinese military, North Korean military, Japanese military, I'm talking about people who have even Israeli military, they don't have the power to house supernatural entities. Now, I believe we can control other things if it's alien, like a physical alien, like we would see like the Predator or ET, even though those aren't real. But I'm giving you that example because they can bleed. They can die. So we have the capacity to imprison them. But I don't think if it's angels and demons, we have maybe that's where CERN comes from. Who knows? You hear these places where there's these portals and there's these supernatural beings. And what's the invested interest of the supernatural being? We can't build a prison to hold a supernatural being, demon or angel. We can't do it. We can't hold them down. According to the Bible, through the blood of Jesus, you have the ability to cast demons aside and drive them back and drive them out. You don't have to be a Christian to believe in this theory or this fact. I believe it to be fact. I believe angels and demons are real. I believe there's a supernatural plane, and I believe supernatural beings can travel in and out of our natural realm into their supernatural realm. There are even examples where natural beings, such as people, that's what I mean, people, have crossed over into a supernatural plane only to come back to a natural plane. The Bible has examples, and it's not the only book that has examples of it. I had a friend who I was in prison with, and he was a Wiccan, and he was part of the witchcraft circle in New Orleans, and he got out of prison and he lived with the Covenant of Witches in New Orleans. They helped housing, inside the prisons, you could practice whatever religion you want. And so Wiccans, witches, would go to the prisons and, share their religion. They would have church, except they would talk about whatever it is that Wiccans talk about. And when he got out, he went and lived with them. And he was a good friend of mine. He was my crime partner. I did a lot of crime with this dude. And he would tell me and what they had going on. And because I remember one time I went over there and they had a seance in the back and it said, "Do not disturb, seance, ritual in progress." And so I'm like, "Damn, man, what's that?" So I pulled my cross out my shirt and I put my cross right there. I said, "I don't receive none of that." I was waiting for him because we were going to do dirt. We were going to do some robberies. So I go to pick him up and finally he knew I was coming. So I just waited outside the gate. He came out. I said, "Man, what's going on?" He said, "Oh, no, they tapping into this thing." I said, "Tapping into this thing, huh?" I said, "Man, we about to go tap into this money." And so we left to go do our dirt. But they weren't Christians, obviously. And they were tapping into some supernatural aspects, tapping into some fields of power that were not natural. It was supernatural. To me, it was demonic and evil, what they were tapping into. I tap into the supernatural. I'm tapping into the kingdom of heaven. I'm tapping into the blood of Jesus, which is the blood of the Lamb. That's what I believe. Other people believe other things. Obviously, my friend was a Wiccan and he believed in that. So this was a guy who I did dirt with, and we had two polar opposite viewpoints. I get that from people all the time. One of my good friends, he's an atheist. He don't believe in none of it, nothing. So people believe in different things and they stand on what they believe on. I stand on what I believe on. Jesus Christ died for the sins of mankind. That's what I believe. And that's what I stand on. I'm a Christian. I can't change that. That's who I am. That's what I believe in my heart. My whole entity, my whole existence exists on that. I'm saying all that to say this, that we're getting to a point in history where the world powers and the powers that be aren't just vying for the power of nuclear weapons and nuclear capabilities, but they're all, and that's for the purpose of power. And what I mean by power is, if you know anything about nuclear physics, nuclear capabilities have the capacity to power much longer than regular energy sources. And it also has the ability to demolish at an exponential rate that we can't fathom, apocalyptic type scale stuff, right? So that's the natural. That's what nuclear science studies. But on another plane, I think the powers of the world and the powers that are not just vying for nuclear capabilities in the natural, but they're also getting to a point in history where they're tapping into supernatural or extraterrestrial powers and knowledge. And that could be why these 10 scientists all came up missing or dead. And I'm sure we'll get some answers, but I don't know if we'll get the right answers or the answers or truthful answers. They might not be completely open with us. We don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. We just don't know. And so you got to make peace with that and make peace within yourself. And for me, my peace comes from God. My peace comes from Jesus and the Holy Bible. Other people, they don't want no peace, or they find it in different ways. And so that's what you get on The Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel on YouTube experience. On YouTube is you get me talking about the connection when it comes to crime and prison. I connected it. Go back. It's all over the place. I'm running around like the rabbits. I connected it, these crimes, to, which is criminal in nature, because I'm a crime and prison channel. If these people were abducted by humans or aliens, they were abducted nonetheless, and that's a crime. Or they were unalived by a rogue nation or another world power for the purpose of keeping them shut or gathering information. They're missing. I don't know if they're in China somewhere. I don't know where they at. They could be in the swamps, in the alligator's belly, in Louisiana. How do I know? I have no clue where they are. It's all just speculation. That's all I'm giving you is speculation. I have no facts on none of this stuff. I'm just sharing my thoughts and my opinions. And in America, we can still give our thoughts and opinions freely. Welcome to The Pen and the Shank, man. Like, subscribe, man. Share this video. Hype it up. You know the regular routine.